Good God afternoon, people of God. You have tuned into The Solutions. I am your host, Minister Corey Wright. And as always, we know what the problems are. What I offer on this platform is solutions, dedicated acts of action that bring about true change, not just talked about change, and no excuses. Excuses are man's tools of incompetence that build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothing. People of God, as always, we're always looking for sponsorship and donation. I have a GoFundMe set up on my page, so please donate. And please bless this ministry. People of God, I am super excited today. I have one of the greatest testimonies in the world. Buckle up because we're about to go to the rocket. I have former world-class track and field hurdler, Julius Mercer, one of the greatest runners in the world. Basically, the police couldn't catch him. They tried. I have him, his amazing testimony, author of a world-famous book, A New Fire in You. We're going to get into his testimony, his rise, his trials and tribulations, and his rise again. And I hope this testimony inspires people that God can change any situation and he can change anything. And if you might go through things, but remember, people of God, God is always with you. And tomorrow can be different if you do something different today. Let me introduce you all to my special guest, Julius Mercer. Mr. Mercer, Julius, which one you would call you?
Yeah, Julius, please.
Julius,
Julius.
Introduce yourself to the crowd and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first, it's my pleasure to be here to meet you, Mr. Corey, and the entire staff here that puts everything together. Yeah, I think, and I'm really impressed by the name of your show, Solutions, because that's what I'm about.
All right. Now, okay, we're going to get into your testimony. Let's first get into this amazing book. And how can people buy it? And tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, you can go to Amazon. And just type in my name, Julius Mercer. The book will appear. It's called A New Fire in You. You can purchase that way. Or you can go to my website. www.juliusmercer.com. And it will give you directions of how to order the book as well. I like to always start off, even when I go speak, and say to people that if you can't stand to see a grown man cry when he talk, then you're at the wrong place. Because I was told when I first start to write that a hallmark of a literary writer is a person who can write and allow people to walk in their shoes. And that's how I write, and that's how I talk.
Wow. Well, I love it, because, hey, on the Solutions, we get all the way deep. We want to make people to know that they're not the only ones going through stuff, and you can make it. You can bounce back. But let's start off with you, because you're still in good shape right now. I don't want to try to run against you right now. How did you get started running, or where did it start?
Running?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I grew up in the south suburbs as a teenager. It's an area called Park Forest, Illinois.
Okay.
And I went to junior high school there. We landed in Illinois when I was 13. And then I went to junior high school, 14 and 15, years old. And I played basketball. I learned to play basketball. I didn't know how to play. That's when I discovered that I was a good defensive player, because I couldn't shoot a lick, but I can block a lot of people's shots.
Okay.
Right. So the coaches discovered that too. And so in junior high school, we didn't have track. But when I came out of junior high school, I went to a high school called Rich East High School in Park Forest, Illinois.
Right, Rich East.
Yeah. And I played basketball. I played baseball and basketball freshman and sophomore year. Yeah. And basketball, I excelled. Started as a freshman, and then I got put up to sophomore in basketball and started. When I was a sophomore, I got put up to varsity. Towards the end of the season, didn't play very much. But when I was a junior and senior, I was starting forward/center for my high school team.
Wow. Now tell the people who you played with.
Oh, Craig Hodges, who won the first 2 championships with the Chicago Bulls. He's a great 3-point shooter. Yeah, him and I were teammates, and today we're still good friends.
Wow.
Yeah. But in terms of running track, When I was a junior, I come from a family of great athletes. You know, my brothers. I have a brother that's a couple years older than me. My oldest brother, a couple years older than me. Then I have a second older brother than myself. They both had ran track, and they set records. My eldest brother set record in the low hurdles, and my second oldest brother set a record in the triple jump. And then when I was a junior, by this time they had left the school. They joined the Army. And then they encouraged me to go off of track when I was a junior. And so first day of track practice, I had a coach. His name is Johnny Meisner. He went on later to become in the Hall of Fame at Eastern Illinois University.
Wow.
Track and field coach, 20 years.
Okay.
So Johnny Meisner, you know, he come to me and I was like 17 years old, and he's like country, but he's, you know, country, and he's always moving, and he called me Julius. He said, "Hey, Julius. You ever run the hurdles before?" I said, "No." So he pulled a low hurdle out on the track. And at that time we had cinder tracks, because this was 1978. He said, "Jump over that hurdle." And I just jumped over it awkwardly. And he said, "You're going to be a hurdler."
He just said it like,
he said, "You're going to be a hurdler."
Wow.
Yeah, he had a premonition before I did.
Okay.
And color has nothing to do with this, but I like to mention it just to give an idea of the setting. He was white. See? He was white, and he put a dream in my head that I never saw. Okay. And so so that year I ran and I was mediocre, junior year. My senior year, I ran the high hurdles and the low hurdles, 330 low hurdles, and I was undefeated in both races the whole season.
Wow.
Right. And then I was district champion in the high hurdles, and the low hurdles, I think I finished fourth. The low hurdles fourth, but I was district champion in the high hurdles, and I qualified for the Illinois State track championship and the high hurdles, 110-meter high hurdles, my senior year. So I went to the state meet, and I didn't even get out the preliminaries. You got to have 3 races to make it to the final, 2 to make it to the finals. I didn't even get out the preliminaries. You got to finish like in the top 2, 3 to advance. Okay. And I think I finished maybe 7th or 8th.
Wow.
So I went to the state meet, didn't even finish nowhere.
Okay.
That's how I started running track.
Now, let me make sure for the audience. So you run a little bit, then jump over the hurdle, you run and you jump over the hurdle. That's got to be, you got to have great balance and great position, because you got to know your steps, right? Yeah. And the 110-meter high hurdles, it's 110 meters long, the entire race. Okay. But it's like about a 20-yard sprint to the first hurdle. And then when you jump over the first hurdle or any hurdle, there's 10 yards in between. So the ideal is to have 3 steps in between each hurdle before you get over the other one. That's in the 110-meter hurdles. Like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, jump, 1, 2, 3, jump, 1, 2, 3, jump. And by me being 6'3" and long legs, that wasn't hard for me. My technique was flawed. And so the coaches just constantly would work on my technique as I go. But and I gotta share this with you. When I was born as a severe bow-legged child. Severe bow-legged?
Severe bow-legged child. My story is like reminiscent of Forrest Gump, the movie Forrest Gump that was depicted by Tom Hanks. Okay. And you remember in the movie Forrest Gump, it was a little kid, and he had these braces on his leg with his shoes. And kids would tease him and mess with him. And then one day there was this truck that was chasing him, and Forrest took off running, ran out those braces. Yes. And then he ended up becoming a star in sports and everything. Right. Yeah, well, when I was born, my left leg in particular was curved in, real bad. And my right leg, they were bowed real bad. And then it impeded my walking and my balance. So when I was an infant, my mom and doctor, they put these braces on my legs. To straighten your legs. Yeah, I wore braces and boots as a kid. Like up 1, 2, 3 years old, I wore these braces. Yeah, and because like I said, and no one had any idea that I would become world class. Right. Yeah. Bowling. Wow. But like you mentioned about the good Lord, God had a plan. Saw something that I didn't see. Right, and He brought people to show that. So now fast forward when I learned to run the hurdles in high school. So, and I tell you, my technique was awkward. Well, when I clear the hurdles, like go over the top of the hurdle, you're only a hurdler when you're clearing the hurdle, because that's what's called hurdling, is when you clear. You have to clear it with a certain type of technique.
Okay.
You extend your right leg forward or your left leg forward, and then the leg that comes behind you is called a trail leg. It trails.
Okay.
And the ideal is to get that trail leg over quick as you can and make it your next biggest step to clear the next hurdle in a timely manner, running a pace. Okay? So, but when I clear the hurdle, because of these bow legs I had, my legs wouldn't go over straight. My legs would come over like almost to the side of the hurdle, and my lead leg would turn sideways because I'm bow-legged.
Okay.
Yeah, and so teammates and friends used to call me crazy legs. And other guys from other teams say crazy legs. But what's interesting is that I didn't lose. I used to whip them all the time.
Right. So crazy legs kept winning, huh?
Yeah, I used to whip
So
them.
maybe they need to get some crazy legs.
Yeah. And so anyway, from there, so my senior year, I was district champion in the high hurdles.
Wow.
Yeah, and so from there, at the end of the track season, my senior year, I received a lot of awards. MVP on the track team for most points scored, most first place finishes. I got an award from my high school called the Terry King Award, most dedicated athlete.
Okay.
Okay. I was co-captain and leader of track team. And so, but I got all these trophies. And then the head coach, not the assistant coach was a little different. Head coach shook my hand and said, good luck. No mention of college, no mention of going anywhere. But in hindsight, you know, it's like, why would they mention it? Because my grade point average was 1.65.
You had a grade point average of 1.65?
Out of a 4.0 scale.
Wow.
That's right. I probably graduated because they liked me as a person and I was a good athlete.
Wow. Whoa.
That's right. 1.65. And the head coach of my track team was also my math teacher, who happened to be white. Okay. Again, I was raised, I get along with anybody, everybody. The color's not the issue. I just said it so you can see the setting at this time.
Right.
He was my math teacher, and I flunked his class, but I think I got a D to pass it. So,
okay.
Turns out years later, he didn't mention college to me because he didn't think I had the aptitude or the ability to ascertain or to deal with college courses. Okay. Now, I didn't know this until after I graduated from college from him. So track season was over. I got all these trophies and a hot dog and a pop, some chips, you know, handshake.
Okay.
And then it was over. And I don't even remember thinking anything about college or anything. All I knew is I got all of this and it was over. So then, but my dad said, son, it's time for you to get a job now. I come from a 2-parent household, you know, dad worked, mom's the housewife. So I just remember coming home, dad said, son, you got to find you a job. So I went to the Park Forest golf course, 18 years old, and they hired me. It's my first job ever.
Okay.
They hired me. I learned to cut cups on the golf course, and I used to drive this tractor around and pick up golf balls on the court, on the land there. And then people used to get drunk and throw golf balls at me and try to hit the tractor and stuff like that. That's what I was doing. And then one day, a coach from another high school in Chicago Heights, Illinois, it's called Bloom High School. This coach is named Lionel Poole.
Okay.
Lionel Poole is in the Hall of Fame coaching track and field in the state of Illinois in high school.
Okay.
Lionel Poole, the coach at Bloom, he remembered that I upset his 2 hurdlers at the district championship, and I was number 1. And when Lionel Poole saw me, he says, and he happened to be a black man, he says, Julius, what are you doing here? You should be going in college. I said, coach, but I don't have grades. He says, but you can still go even if you don't have the grades. I can. You can go to a community college. There's 2-year colleges all over the U.S. And in Florida, California, and Texas, and Kansas, they have so many community colleges in each state. And they give scholarships to all sports.
Wow.
He said, you can go there. They'll let them help show you to get your grades up. He said, and then you can use your athletic ability, and I want you to graduate from college. So you have something to fall back on. That's what he told me.
Man,
Yeah.
So what happened?
So I said, I'm down with it. So he made a call to the coach in Kansas. And then 30 days or so later, the coach that coached track at this Kansas Community College, who happened to be a white guy, he drove from Kansas all the way and he picked me up at my mama's house.
Wow.
He picked me up, and then he picked up two other guys, one from St. Joseph High School. They were great athletes, but they didn't have the grades. And one from Harvey. And all four of us drove with that coach back to Kansas. And I remember when we pulled out of my mama's parking lot, I remember I was talking to my dad, my mom, and everybody. If I got tears, it's okay.
It's okay.
We're going down memory lane.
Go ahead. Ain't no wrong with that.
And look. So I was waving my family. Yeah, I'm glad to go. I'm going. And then it was a station wagon. So I was in the back of the station wagon. So when the car was pulling out of our driveway, you could see me in the back of the station wagon. I was waving to my family, like the Beverly Hillbillies,
Yes.
like the wave. And I was waving, and then I just started crying like a baby. All the way to Kansas, I was crying.
Like, wow.
I started crying. And when I got there, this is some of the things I write about too. When I got there, this is what I discovered. First year in college, first I got there, they gave me a full scholarship.
4-year scholarship?
Gave me a full 2-year scholarship.
Wow.
Paid for everything. Yeah. And the coach asked me to make one promise to him that I will go to class. But he said, I don't care if you fall asleep. I just want you to go to class.
Just got to go.
Yeah. Because without class, you can't keep the scholarship.
So you got to go to class.
Yeah, that's what I did. And I went to class. And this is what they discovered. After the first semester there, I'm 19 years old when my grades came out. English, biology, math. One of the coaches who coached basketball, all I know is that I'm oblivious to the grades and the passing, because I just go to class and I was just doing the best I can. I really wasn't studying a lot. I was just doing what I knew, studying a little bit, reading. And then, but this one guy who happened to be white, best man I've ever met.
Okay.
He had a meeting with me in his office and he said, Julius, look, we saw your grades and your testing. He said, I was testing at 4th and 5th grade level in math, science, English.
At 4th and 5th grade level in college?
That's right.
Wow.
I was 19 years old. That's right. And he says, but we have a plan for you. We have a plan. There's a plan that we have that can make you better. And he says, I want to put you with a tutor. You're going to go see these 2 tutors every so often. You see these tutors, and they help you with your schoolwork. And they put me in a class called to increase my vocabulary class.
Okay.
And they put me in this word association class. Okay. And word association class, and then he told me, he says, most guys that come out of Chicago and come out of these poor areas, I've been around. This is a white guy. He said, I've been around. Most of them, they fall and they fail. And he says, I believe they don't fail because there's something that they can't do. He says, they don't have a reading or writing problem. He says, I believe they have a remembering problem.
Remember, okay, now that's deep.
I know.
That's deep.
Real deep.
Because I know I forget stuff quick.
Because this is about solutions.
Right.
Because I talk about this. He says remembering problem.
Okay.
Okay. Now, and I'm adding this in because, we do have a lot of issues, especially among our African, Americans in the black communities, and there's crime. And then you have some people who say, well, it's poverty related, right? So jobs related. Yes, I agree with that. But I found out that there's something else too. It's teachings.
Yeah.
It's like some teachings that help overcome academic deficiencies and interpersonal issues, right? So they put me in this word association class.
Okay.
And they just had three things they showed me. They drew up on the board a triangle, a pair of shoes, and a telephone pole. Okay, and the telephone pole, they would draw the telephone pole, they would put number 1.
Right.
pair of shoes. There's 2 pairs of shoes. They'll put the number 2 up under the shoes. And then the triangle will be up there. And under the triangle, they'll put the number 3. So what they did was they just had me go, they would say 1, and I go, telephone pole. 2, pair of shoes. 3, triangle. Or they'll say triangle, number 3. 2, pair of shoes. 1, telephone pole. And I had to repeat that process just over and over, and I thought it was boring. But the guy told me, no, you just keep doing it. And you write it down hundreds of times. Just keep doing it. I said, what is this going to do? He said, it's going to help you to learn to remember through repetition.
That's good. Learning to remember through I love it. You know, that's how you get good at anything, by doing it over and over again. Okay, that's pretty good.
Anything, right?
Right.
Sport related, anything. And he told me that. He said, when you run track, don't the coach practice over and over and over and you get it right? I said, yeah, it's the same thing. This is the secret. You don't have a reading and writing problem. You got a remembering problem.
That's deep, because so many people out there probably got memory problems. They think they got a learning deficiency, but they really don't.
That's right, because he told me my memory problems stem from, as a kid growing up, being teased about the braces, teased about big lips, little ears, and being real skinny, and people making jokes and teasing from junior high school all the way up. This causes some emotional and mental blocks that impeded to boost my classroom performance level in anything that I did.
Okay.
Lowered self-esteem, self-worth.
That's good. That's good. That's right. That's right. Low self-esteem is low self-worth. I love
Self-worth, the value you put on yourself. So he said, that's what happened in the beginning, but how do we fix this right now?
Solution.
Okay? Yeah. Now, he didn't go into the things where we could have said inferiority complex, passed on from generation to generation, how were you born? He didn't go into that. He came to me in a way that to help me build a defense system against other kids and people who said education wasn't cool, or a defense system to protect my own self-worth and my value while building my value at the same time.
That's good. That's good. Say that again. Say that again. I like that.
Yeah, he didn't focus on the history and the things that could be passed on, and then you have this that can affect your family and all that stuff. You know, from racism, from a plantation, all this stuff. He didn't go into that. He gave it to me in a way that affected anybody, no matter your color, your race, your ethnic, about the emotional, the inside that can affect you or impede your, like if you can't manage, for a lot of people cannot manage being teased, being criticized, being talked about, you know, or a lot of anger involved with them as a kid. So, and he says that, and it can happen to anybody, and if you can't manage that in a positive way, then you block your own performance power that should be boosted in classrooms. Okay. Or anything that you do, even in sports. Yes. So that's what he focused on. So he figured that if he could, so because of that happened to me, now what's the solution? How do we get Julius on a better, raise his self-esteem and self-worth? Well, I got to teach him the basics. You know, first work with his memory, and then increase his vocabulary so he can read and understand his college and research material. Then he can write better. Okay, and then and my job was to just go to class and go to tutors, just be there. And then I was down with the plan. 2 years later, after being in the community college, junior college, my grade point average 2.1, and I graduated from junior college.
All right. Okay. See, so it doubled from what it was.
High school classes, junior college classes are a little different, a little more harder. But I was able to make it. See, he saw that I had the characteristics, building blocks already. You're born with it. But my maturity level to grow beyond was blocked because I didn't know how to defend myself from criticism.
Defend yourself from criticism. That's powerful. I had to learn. I did a show last week about disconnecting from negative people, and especially people that do a lot of criticism. That's good. So in that 2 years when you graduated, what did you do on the field?
Oh, on track? They knew that was the easy part. I was a good athlete. While I was there, I was what they call a 4-time junior college All-American. And I'm the only one till this today, the only one at this Butler Community Junior College in Kansas to be 4-time All-American in track and field. This means that,
wow.
Yeah, when they had to, you have to, in each event, you try to qualify for the junior college or community colleges championships, the United States junior college track and field championships. So there's 300-400 colleges all over the United States. But in your event, you have to make a certain time just to qualify to go to the championship. And then when you go to the championship, you have to run twice, and they eliminate the slowest runners.
Wow.
And then the fastest 9 runners that are left will be in the finals of the junior college championship. But only the top 3 can be All-Americans. And I did it 4 times, indoor and outdoor track. I finished in the top 3 both times.
I bet say we can't catch this guy.
Crazy legs and all. Running with crazy legs. And that success in track and field, very importantly, along with my GPA over 2.0. See, the big colleges back then cannot give you a scholarship unless you got a 2 and better GPA.
Okay.
That's why they helped me. But I got me up to 2.1, and they made a promise to me. They said, if you can get you up past a 2.0, your GPA, he said, the way you're running, you can get your full scholarship. My head coach told me that in college. And next thing you know, I've got about 5 or 6 big colleges offering me scholarships. They offered me 3/4 scholarships, half scholarships. Only one, Kansas State University, offered me a full scholarship, pay for everything. And that's where I went.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I went to Kansas State University, now most people take 4 years to graduate, 4.5 years. It took me 5. I graduated after the 5th year. But when I went to Kansas State, I forgot one thing.
What was that?
I forgot to do the basics, have the discipline to do the basics, like the tutoring and all that stuff on the side that got me there. But when I went to Kansas State, it was a big college, like 50,000. The classrooms are 400 to 500. When I was in junior college, the classrooms were about the size of high school, which allowed them to give you more attention.
About 30 or 40 people.
Yeah.
30. Okay.
Yeah. So when I went to Kansas State, it was 600. And this is what happened. I was overcome with freedom to do what I want to do. They don't know me. And so they pass papers and tests around, and you put your name and social security number on it. Then you turn it in, and then they grade your test. They do a lecture and grade it. So I wasn't a big man on campus no more. Everybody didn't know me. I just blended in with everybody. And what I did wrong was I took advantage of that freedom. There was days I didn't go to class. There were days that I just stood out partying, chasing the girls with the guys. And then I said, they don't care anyway. I can make it up. I can get back in. But what happened was I was partying so much, like smoking a lot of weed and going out and drinking 4 days a week, that I was one of those individuals that when I started smoking weed, it never hurt me in a bad way, but it made me lazy. And so I noticed that when I try to study, I just said, forget it. The lines are blurry. I'm skipping lines. I'll do it tomorrow. Problem was I kept repeating the same process, partying. Tomorrow never came. So then when the test came up, I was ill prepared. And then I end up my junior year at Kansas State. I received a letter of dismissal from the university. I flunked out of college because my grades, I didn't meet the academic standards to keep my scholarship, stay in the school.
Were you winning on the field at that time?
No. Average. I was average in track and field hurdler. They called me a premier hurdler. I was finishing 3rd and 4th to the seniors and stuff like that. They saw me as a guy with a lot of potential athletically, but they had no idea I had failed in the classrooms. I didn't go to tutors. I didn't see counselors. I just got caught up in the excitement of the school and doing other stuff, and then I failed in the classrooms.
Do you think that's the reason why so many of our young people fell out of college, because of the freedom and the partying?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, freedom, and it's like a catch-22 because number one, you're older, and they say, "Oh, you can make your decisions if you want this, you or not." That's number one, and then number two, I would say it's like when a lot of guys like a child with a new toy. They put so much. A lot of the coaches and people put so much emphasis on you're a great athlete
that they forget about the
yeah,
grades.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be a student first, athlete second.
But you did graduate. So how did you get
back? Well, I got the letter of dismissal. When I got the letter of dismissal, they sent it to me because I'm 20 years old. They said they're going to send one to me, and they have an option. They can notify my father and my mother or let me do it. When I got the letter, I cried like a baby. I couldn't believe it. And then I had to go face my coach and told him I got dismissed from the school. And then I cried, and the coach said to me, "It happens to a lot of athletes. It happens. You should have went to class. You should have went to school." Okay? So then I was crying all day. I was really twisted. And then I remember a couple of days later, I got a call from a white guy who was my professor at my college. Okay? This is a blessing. He called me and he invited me in to come speak to him. And then it was two professors named Henry Camp and Mr. Marvin Kaiser. And then they were professors and they were teachers. And I was a student in one of the teachers' class that I flunked. And they said to me, and I said briefly, "Julius, we learned that you got dismissed from the school. We wanted to talk to you because we watch you. You run track. You're pretty good. Mm-hmm. We like you. You're a good guy. And we want to talk to you. You flunked out, but there's a way you can get back."
Okay.
And I went, "What? I can?" He says, "Yeah, you can get back. I can." And I started crying. I said, "Please," because, I didn't let my dad and them know because my dad and my mom, all they do is brag about me. First one in college. They're bragging about me running track and all that. I said, I won't let them down.
Right.
Right. And so he says, this is what he says to me. This is the professor. Now, he doesn't write a lot of books. He said, "Julius, a lot of athletes, they don't make it. They flunk out of college, don't make it. You know why? Because they put so much emphasis on athletics, think they're going to be make pro. And they don't understand they're student first." He says, "And the other thing is, Julius, what's your major?" I said, "Physical education." And he said, "That's a problem." He said, "Most black athletes through history, they major in physical education because it's an easier, softer road to graduate. And then there's a stigma that the athletes are too dumb to go the other routes. They get physical education." And this was a white guy telling me this.
That's deep.
Yeah. And he said, "Wow." He said, so I said, "Well, what should I do?" He said, "I think you should think about doing something else." I says, "What?" He says, "What are the things you like doing?" I said, "Helping people, talking to old people, helping people do better, helping people change their life." I was 21 years old. I was always a talkative person.
So you already had a kind of insight in who you were then.
Yeah. And then he said to me, "Talking, helping, social worker." He said, "You can get a bachelor's in sociology." So I looked at it. And then he says, "There's another thing I want you to do, Julius." He said, "I want you to go." He says, "We got these courses set up. If you take these 4 classes for the summer school, we're going to put you with the football team of Kansas State summer conditioning program. You go practice with them. Okay, you'll get an A, just don't miss. We're going to put you in 2 easy classes for your grade point average to go up. But now you got to take these 3 hard curriculum courses during the summer." And he says, "You cannot score below a B in these classes. If you do that for these 4 classes, you get a B and A's, then you can get reinstated back into the university." I'm sorry. Test. He said, if I could get B's and up, I can get reinstated back into the university." Then I was like, "How?" He said, "Also, we're going to assign you to a tutor again."
Tutor, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, "I had a tutor at Butler Community College." He says, "Yeah, you have to have a tutor." He says, "And the other thing is you have to change your social life. You got to stop going with those guys and partying. Monday through Friday, chasing the girls. You have to stop. I said, well, where do I go? What do I do? He said, you go to the library because that's where the studiers are, the smart people. Besides, there's girls there too. And you can talk to the girls and they're going to help you study too. I said, okay. He said, that's what you do. And you got to go see the tutor. He said, they're going to help you in your weaknesses. Okay. And that's what I did. And then there's one more thing he said, very important. He said, I want you to go to the library and I want you to pick out a great African American that was a slave that overcame odds of racism and became very educated.
He wanted you to know about you and your history. So because how can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been?
Yes. He knew the value of a mentor.
So he was giving you a mentor from the past.
And he wanted to be my own kind.
That's good. That's good. This is a white guy said.
It's a white guy. He's a professor.
Sociology professor. Have a mentor of your own. So you would know, oh man, that's good. That's good. Oh man, what a testimony. Come on.
Yeah, so I went and I looked up a lot of them. Carver, I went Carver, but I picked Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
When I saw his story, how he was illiterate, couldn't read or write, but he tricked the slave counterparts, the little kids of the family that he was with, and the master and all that, and they taught him how to read and write, and that helped him when he eventually escaped because he can read and write and follow directions, right? And then when he grew up north, he became an abolitionist. He joined some other whites up north who were against slavery. And then they wanted him, Frederick, to tell his story about the South.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a lot of slavery. And so, but they wanted him to tell his story, but they didn't want him to tell all of it. They said they wanted to tell some of it, but don't go too deep. But he should just let loose and tell his story anyway, what was going on.
Okay.
So anyway, he ended up graduating, getting his PhD. And when I read that story, it just did something to me. It inspired me. And then, so I just followed the orders. I stopped partying so much. I remained focused and committed to this program to help me. Because I was always taught, if you want to be good, you got to be around people that are better than you, whatever they do.
That's right.
No matter what, good or bad you're doing, if you're around the best, you're going to be the best.
That's right.
Right? And so that's what I did. I got around people who knew more than me. And there were whites, there were blacks at the libraries, girls and guys. I didn't care because I didn't want my dad and nobody to be let down. Yeah, and I wanted to accomplish this for my family, myself. So I did whatever it takes, and I talked to whoever. Look, I'm having a problem here. Can you help me? And they did. So I found out that there are more people for you than against you if you just ask.
Right.
Right?
If you just ask people, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And and then in my classrooms, my professor told me when I go back to the classrooms, he said, don't be quiet no more. Ask questions. If you don't know, stop them. And I remember going to the classrooms, 600 people, and I read the work, but I didn't really understand some of it. So the professor would lecture and say, for example, he would say, in chapter 3, you read da, 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 da. And as you know, da, 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 da. And I used to stop and say, why do you say as you know? I don't understand it. I didn't read it. He said, it's in the reading. And I used to stop him over and over and over. Again, as you know, I don't know. Could you explain a little bit more? Finally, he got tired of me asking so many questions. And I remember my professor told me to ask questions. This is what happened. I asked so many questions that he said, Julius Mercer, can you see me after class? And we'll talk. And he got me on one-on-one to talk to him. And then he assigned me to another tutor.
So you would get that as well. So you had 2 tutors.
That's right. For the as you knows, because he saw that I still had some problems connecting some of the reading and the words. So he put me with a tutor that can help me connect the words and the reading. See?
That's powerful.
Yeah, it was so powerful because 2 years later, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in sociology.
All right. There you go. There you go. So what happened on the field?
Oh, on the field, as my confidence and self-worth and self-esteem went up, the more I progressed in school, like learning and got better, I saw things happening that I didn't know. And every time I saw improvement, it carried over with my confidence on the inside and my esteem and my self-worth. I am something. I can do this now. So when I started going to track practice, it's like I was putting more work in on the track, right? And so my senior year at Kansas State University, I also got a blessing. My senior year, I got bad news. My track coach was fired, but we have a new coach coming in, and his name is Steve Miller. Okay, so senior year, new coach comes in. I have to go meet the new coach. Now, when I met the new coach, I also had this paperwork with me that said that I've been reinstated back to the school. I passed all these summer courses. The new coach had heard that I flunked out. So I walk in and I say, Coach, Steve Miller, how you doing? Nice to meet you. I'm Julius Mercer. He said, yeah, nice to meet you. I said, I got great news. Look at my transcripts. I got A's and B's during the summer. They said I'm back in the school. And the new coach said, oh, gosh, I gave away your scholarship. And I said, what? Well, guys usually don't come back. When they flunk out, they never come back. I've been doing this for years.
So he didn't anticipate you coming back. He figured, okay, you flunked out. You're not coming back.
And so I gave your scholarship. I broke your full scholarship up, and I was able to give half scholarships to some other runners. And I went, what? He said, I'm sorry. You can take out a loan or something like that and pay for your senior year. I said, what? I started crying. I was mad. I cursed at him. I said, I'm just going to go to Arizona State. Arizona State said they wanted me too. And the coach said, go to Arizona State. I said, I can't believe you, man. You didn't believe in me. I told you I was going to make it back. I told you I was going to make it back. And I was just crying. And I picked up the phone on his desk. And I remember I started dialing a number. And I was crying. And I was so twisted, I didn't even know the number. I didn't know the number, but I was just... Then I hung up, and then I left, and then I had a roommate who was on the track team too. He grew up in the projects from Cleveland, Ohio. He ended up getting his master's degree, but he was inspiring me. He says, look, man, you can still run. Take out a loan. Take out a student loan, man. Pay for your schooling, man, so you can finish your degree. Come on, man, don't quit now. Don't quit. And that's what I did.
Okay.
I took out a $15,000 loan, and then...
$15,000 for that 1 year?
Yep. Because I had to also pay for my apartment. I got a free grant too, like $700, something like that. But I paid for my apartment, paid for my school, paid for my own expenses, whatever I had to do. But guess what? A year and a couple of months later, I graduated, right? And a senior year in track, doing that new coach, check this out. That new coach, I found out after we argued, I didn't know nothing about him at first, but after I took out the loan and stuck with it, and when he introduced himself to the whole team, he said, my name is Steve Miller. He said, I coached 2 Olympic teams before in the pole vault and the high jump, and this is what I expect. He laid down all these new rules. See, this school's history have never had all these new rules. And this school's history, Kansas State University, was in the Big 8 conference. They never finished in the conference finals in track. No higher than 4th place. 4th place. Never in history. He laid down all these rules, and a lot of athletes were mad about these new rules. They thought, who's this arrogant guy coming in here? Well, this guy, Steve Miller, the head coach, him and his assistant, they are from Chicago Heights. Bloom High School in Chicago Heights, which is my neighborhood. Remember the guy that I told you that said that I can go to a community college? That coach?
Yes.
My head track coach at Kansas State was his mentor.
Oh, so he mentored him.
And I didn't know it. He just came in my life.
Look at God.
Look, that's God working, yeah. And this is what Steve Miller did for me. He said, Julius, look, you've been running these times in community college. They're average. He says, you're running the hurdles in 51 seconds, the low hurdles, the 400-meter low hurdles, one lap around the track, 51 seconds at the community college. He said, but without the hurdles, you're running 50.0 seconds. He said, this doesn't make sense to me. You should be running faster in those low hurdles. Okay? He says, but I got a plan. The first 3 months, I don't want you to train with the sprinters and the hurdlers anymore. See, since high school, I was training with sprinters and hurdlers. He said, the first 3 months, I got to build stamina, endurance, and strength in you. So I want you to train with the half milers and the cross-country guys. And I went, what? He said, if you do that, I think you can make the Olympic team. That's what he told me. What? So I did what he said. And those guys used to kick my butt in practice, those distance guys.
Right, because they used to going so far.
Yep. When I trained with the sprinters and the hurdlers, I used to run 3 miles maximum. But after 3 months running with those guys, I could run 6 miles.
Whoa.
Okay. So now when track season started, this is what happened at the end of my senior year. At the end of the season, I ran in the Big 8 Conference Championship races. Big 8 is Kansas University, Colorado, Iowa State, Oklahoma Sooners, Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Big colleges.
Yeah. So I ran in the finals. I ran 2 preliminary races in the low hurdles. Then I made it to the finals in the 110-meter low hurdles. I had the 5th fastest time in the Big 8 Conference finals. There were 9 of us in the finals. I had the 5th fastest. The guy who was supposed to win ran for University of Missouri. His name was Albert Lane. 1 week before, Albert Lane ran the 3rd fastest time in the world. Yeah, but in that Big 8 Conference race final, I upset him. I won. I won the high hurdles, and then the 400-meter low hurdles, I won those, and it made me the 2nd guy in the history of the Big 8 to win both hurdle races. A few weeks later, I ran in the NCAA College Track and Field Championships, the best in the college in the U.S. I ran in the low hurdles, 400-meter low hurdles. The top 3, there's 9 in the finals. There was about 27 hurdlers, but we got eliminated. You got eliminated all the way down to only 9 left. The top 3 get medals. The top 3 are first team All-American. Out of the 9, I had the 6th fastest time qualifying the finals. Right before the final race, I was number 6. My coach, the Olympic coach, he ran on the track and he looked at me in my eyes and he says, Julius, are you ready? He looked at me in my eyes. Look at me. He said, close your eyes. I want you to imagine yourself running this race, getting out real fast. 400-meter hurdles, 1 lap, 10 hurdles. And I want you to picture yourself winning.
Okay.
And then he said, did you win? Yes. You got it? Okay. Julius, you're in great conditioning. You're not going to die out. Now get in that race. Yes, coach. I was like stuck. I was in like a zone. He put me in a trance. You know, he put this vision.
That mental vision in you.
Right. It's called a mental shift. He created a mental shift in me. When the race was over, I placed number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah, and I was first team All-American in college.
Okay.
And the time I ran, and he also told me this before I ran. He said, Julius, you've been running 50.1 seconds in the 400-meter low hurdles. If you run under 50 seconds, he said, your whole world will change. When I placed 3rd, and I looked up at the clock in my name, the time said 49.7 seconds. And I started crying. And I cried, I went, 49!
Okay.
Because 49 put me at number 19th in the world. It made me world class.
Number 19 in the world.
Yeah, in the world. The 49-second run. And the coach ran down and hugged me and kissed me on the face. Julius! He's an Italian guy, so they love to kiss.
Yeah.
You did good. See, I listened and did what he said. I believed in him. He had a plan for me. So every time someone gave me a plan that knew more than me, and I followed it, I did well. Every time I didn't follow the plan, I failed.
That's good, because that's something I'm learning now, to listen to people with better plans than mine and following a plan.
Who know more and was successful.
Okay.
I could take my plan and incorporate it into a lot of their tips and strategies. Yeah, I took some of the tips. Every time I took their tips, I excelled, because they excelled too. And everybody that followed them excelled.
Okay. Now, so when you won, then what happened after that?
Yeah. I won that. I also qualified for this was in 1983, but the Olympics was in 1984. Okay, but my time in the low hurdles qualified me for the U.S. Olympic trials the next year. And then also my time I ran in the high hurdles, I ran like 13.79 in the high hurdles. That time qualified for the Olympic trials. So I qualified in 1984 for U.S. Olympic trials in 2 hurdle races.
Okay. That's awesome.
Okay. But I only ran in the Olympic trials, which were in Los Angeles, California, in the low hurdle race, because that was the race I had the better chance of making the Olympic team. I was so also the next year, which was 1983. After I became All-American, then about a month later, I ran in what's called the United States Track and Field Championships. I'm 22 years old. The United States Track and Field Championships. Now I'm lined up with the greatest hurdlers in the world and in the U.S. This guy named Edwin Moses. He was a 7-time U.S. champion, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Okay?
You next to him.
Well, I ran in the United States Track and Field Championships, and they did a process of elimination again until they get to the 9 best. I made it to the finals at the 6th fastest time out of the 9 in the finals.
Wow.
I end up when the final was over, I placed 6th, and I was ranked 6th in the United States. But when I got to the finals, I was told that I qualified number 3, third best. And Edwin Moses was number 1. The other guy was me. Yeah, I was a new jack. Everything blossomed. I qualified for the 3rd fastest time in the U.S.
3rd fastest time in the U.S.
Yeah, that year.
And you was also featured on ABC Worldwide of Sports.
Yeah, that's it. That's the race right there. It was the United States Track and Field Championships on ABC Wide World of Sports.
Wow.
Yeah, Edwin Moses. They showed our event on TV because the number 1 ranked hurdler in the world was Edwin Moses. And he went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, but then he was world class. And if he was to win this race, he set a record of 77, I believe, consecutive races that he won in the history. Guinness Book of World Records. See, that's why they featured it. And then the night before this final, I became friends with Carl Lewis, 4-time Olympic gold medalist, his sister Carol, Jackie Joyner Kersey, me and Jackie Joyner Kersey's brother and all, we're all friends. And they were telling me, man, I think you're going to upset Edwin Moses tomorrow. It's going to be on TV. I remember they were telling me, I was like, me? What? Edwin Moses was my idol. But that's what they were talking about. So when the final race came, I choked. I didn't run very well.
You thought it was too much pressure on you?
That's what the coaches told me. They said, you didn't have enough. That's what happens when you don't have international experience. Because I looked back at one point, too. I look back to see where the champion is. You don't do that. Because when you look back, all your running motion stops going forward. For a split of a second, you can't do it when you're running with the best.
That's a good. That's good for life, because you can't look back. When you look back, you stop your momentum. That's good. Go ahead. I bet what a testimony.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up placing 6th and was ranked 6th in the U.S. And then I made a couple of USA teams where you travel the country representing the U.S. Yeah, I ran in the World University Games in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Prince Charles and Lady Diana was the host of our meet. And that's when I ran that time in the U.S. Championships, this is when I made it like big time track. Because suddenly I'm going to meets of 60, 70,000 people.
Wow.
Before that, it was like 100, 200, 300.
And I know the world was opening up, like money and everything.
Yeah, changing the business. And that's the part I had trouble with. It changed over the business. I went there. I didn't run very well, but I ran it to the finals. But I ran adequate. And at World Games in Canada. And then the next thing you know, the next year I got invited to the Japanese Olympic tryouts in Tokyo, Japan. I stayed there 7 days.
Wow.
Yeah, my sponsor was called Mizuno. You know Mizuno? And that's when the Mizuno first came out. They're based in Tokyo, Japan. So they wanted to get some elite athletes over there. and I ran in their Olympic trials in Japan, 55,000 people. And I ran the hurdles. They're trying to make their team, but I ran there as a marketing exhibit. I had a faster time than all the guys from Japan in the hurdles. And then I had to wear their shoes, Mizuno shoes. But this is when I learned the business about track. My sponsor was ASICS. I wear ASICS Tiger shoes.
I remember ASICS.
Yeah, they were my favorite, right? But when I got over to Japan, they said, you can't run with them ASICS. You got to wear these Mizunos. The guy who paid for my trip. I said, no, I wear these ASICS. They took me to the factory. They said, find you some of these Mizuno shoes. You can have anything you want. They gave me sweat gears, all kind of stuff that I took home. And then I said, I don't like none of these shoes. And the guy said, you wear these Mizuno shoes or you don't run. And then that's when I learned it's a business.
It's a business.
Because I thought I came to have fun. I thought I earned this. But their idea was you come and run in our Mizuno shoes and we sell thousands. And you win and we sell thousands. That's when shock of business hit me.
Right. Now it's in a whole new world with money opposed to doing what you love to do. I know it had to have an adverse effect on you.
Sure did. Such an adverse effect that I finished number 4. And I ran the low hurdles, I finished 4th. Plus, combined with that, I had a knee injury. My knee was starting to bother me. I had a left knee, I had a problem from growing up as a bow-legged child. I didn't know I was born with a bone disease, like osteochondritis. So my bones in my left knee was very soft and they fragile. They was breaking off.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I just noticed I had a lot of pain when I got close to the Olympic tryouts. And that was about 9 months before the Olympic trials. I noticed some pain in my knee, practice and stuff like that. So I had a bone scan and it told me my knee was deteriorating from being born with bow legs.
So being born bow leg, your bones was deteriorating.
Yeah, I was born with when I was born with the bow legs, on the inside of my left knee, my bones was real soft. I was born with soft tissue bones where they started fracturing off, breaking off inside my leg. So the strength and everything was going away. Oh, and because a lot of years of running and pounding and jumping, it just got real bad. Yeah.
So what was it? So I know that had to be a real trying moment because I know you're thinking about your career and the sponsorship and the stage that you on now and all the hard work. What happened then? Well,
I knew I was hurt. I noticed that towards the end of my career, I noticed that I didn't have the strength or the speed to run at the end, like the end of the race. I was a strong finisher. I got out slow and I always finished strong. You can get a 60, 70-yard lead on me in the 400-meter hurdles. It happened all the time. Then I reel them all the way in and beat them by 30.
Wow.
Yeah, 20, 30 yards all the time. But I just noticed towards the end that I couldn't get that speed at the end. And it was my knee getting bad. But in the same token, I had these trips to go overseas. And I knew they were once in a lifetime. And I knew that if I told them about the injury, they wouldn't let me go. So I didn't say nothing.
You went anyway.
Yeah, I just went anyway because I felt like I put a lot of work in. I worked hard. I earned it. I qualified. And there was a part of me that felt like it's business. Y'all using me.
And I can still do it. You never, I got good days and bad days.
Well,
right?
I wanted to enjoy the trips. I felt like that my knee is starting hurting. It's because I paid these dues running for y'all, running for the colleges, pounding my body. And that now here's these gifts that I earned. And now if I say something, I can't have them. But y'all got all this prestige from the college and notoriety from the things I did. No, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to enjoy the trip. That's the way I felt.
I agree. You done got all this money off of me and you done got all this prestige and notoriety. I should enjoy some of it.
Yeah, because my professor who sent me to the library and said I can make it back. Remember that guy?
Yes.
He said, you have a free scholarship, but is it really free? What happens if your grades, you flunk out like you did? Is it free? What happens if you get hurt as an athlete? Will your scholarship be there? Is it free? He said, this is where most black athletes get it twisted. It's not free. At what price do you pay? He told me that. And I thought about that all the way when I went to Japan, Canada.
It's a price you pay.
Yeah. Is it free? I paid the price. The school, we finished the Big 8 conference 3rd place, highest in the history. See, because when you win or finish in the top 3, you earn points for your team. I was picked to win one race, not both. I won both, so the team got double the points. So I helped the team. I'm a team player. We had other teammates who won races they weren't supposed to, or they ran better than they were supposed to. So these points helped the team. So I helped the team. The team gets notoriety. That means recruiting, and everything picks up, right?
Right.
And then they pat you on the back and good job, and the school is good. And now they're going to say, you're hurt, now you can't go over here?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So was that kind of like the beginning of the hardship?
No, well, when things got hard was those are probably some of the little things that happened, but added up. Because when I did have the hardship with my fall, it goes back to the little things that add up, and then it finally explodes in the end. Okay.
Okay.
So so after I graduated from college, I don't know we're over time, so I don't want to. But after we
we got about another 50 minutes.
Okay. So after I graduated from college and competing, then Kansas State University hired me as an graduate assistant track coach. So the Olympic coach now who got me there, he wanted to mentor me to become an assistant. Problem was I only made $10,000.
10,000.
Yeah, as a graduate assistant, you make $10,000. But if full assistant coach, you get up in the 20s. So he wanted me to be a graduate assistant, and then like an internship. Say you learn, and then stick around 1 year, and I got you. You'll be one of my guys. Okay. So while I was a graduate assistant, this is what happened. I'm at Kansas State University. Suddenly, the junior college, the community college that I went to in Kansas for 2 years, that coach, he called me and said, "Hey, Mercer, congratulations. Man, you're doing really well. You graduated from college. You're world class. I'm proud of you. What are you doing now?" I said, "I'm a graduate assistant at Kansas State." He said, "How much they paying you?" $10,000. He said, "If you come back here and coach with me at the junior college, I will make you my assistant, and I will pay you $18,000 a year. You get benefits, and you can be a dorm advisor. Stay in a dorm, and your rent is free."
Oh, that was no brainer there, huh?
Yeah, and I left. And my head coach at Kansas State was mad. So I left. So I went to the junior college, and I coached and I recruited. And as soon as I got the job, first thing I did was I recruited some people. So it was whites and blacks, but I felt like I had a responsibility to go get some black brothers a chance out of Chicago area to come back. So I went and picked up 3 guys from Chicago area.
Okay.
In the suburbs. We gave them a scholarship and brought them back. I did the same thing they did for me.
Okay. Give back. All right. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, we brought them back. So I stayed there for about a year coaching. And then I got an offer to go out to California. Now I'm coaching. Then all of a sudden I get a call from a guy who runs a track club in LA. Now LA has a lot of track clubs back in those days. Santa Monica Track Club, Carl Lewis, Kirk Baptiste, these great Olympics, they ran for them. There was a track club called South Bay Track Club in Los Angeles. And this guy told me, he says, "Hey, Julius," he says, 2 of your athletes that you got running for you at the community college in Kansas. Yeah, one of them, 2 of them that you have, they're from Los Angeles. I used to mentor those guys when they were kids.
Okay.
He says, "How are they doing?" "Good." He says, "Well, when school is out during the summer, if you can get those guys to come back out here in LA, they can run for my track club, and I'll get them jobs. And if you come, Julius, you can get on my track club, and I'll get you a job too." And I always wanted to go to LA, so I got married. And then I got those 2 guys out to LA. They wanted to go, and then I went out there. Now I'm living in Los Angeles. I was 25 years old, and I got married. Okay.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I spent 5 years in a college environment in Kansas. Country, cows, tumbleweeds, everything that I really needed to for I had less distractions for me to climb academically, right? So now, here's this dream to go to LA. So, and this is kind of important because this is when I started noticing I had some sickness.
Okay. All right. Get into that testimony.
Okay. So I go to LA, and my wife and I, when we first moved there, I went out there, scouted out a place to go. I had friends that live in LA. They knew more about LA than me. So I said, man, my wife put us in a nice area. So they helped me find an apartment that was about half a mile from Beverly Hills and Rodeo Drive. It was on Wilshire Olympic Boulevard. It was called Brookside Country Club Apartments. It was a gated-in, fenced-in area. Even they said Muhammad Ali or some famous people used to live in these places. So that's where we moved to. It was like $650 a month for a small place, real small, Cracker Jack box.
Cracker Jack box for $650.
Yeah. So we stayed there, and the job that I was promised when I got there didn't happen because there was the guy told me it didn't happen because he got in an argument with somebody. It was a job for UPS. So now I didn't have a job. We paid the rent for a month. I didn't have a job, and my wife she does hair. So she didn't have a job yet. She was a hairdresser. So right away when we didn't have a job, I told my wife, I said, we got to move. We got to cut her overhead real quick until I get a job. And I knew if we moved to the hood where it's a lot lower income level people, that we're going to find cheaper rent. That's all I knew.
Why didn't you couldn't go back to the where you were before that job, where you left to come to LA? You couldn't go back?
Kansas?
Yes.
I didn't want to go back to Kansas. I had enough of Kansas being there for a lot of years because I wasn't, it's kind of slow for me. It's laid back. It was good for its purpose. I love the people. I love to go visit. But in terms of living, I like more of just more people, more places to go, more things to do.
Okay.
That type. Shopping, running, going to clubs, going to workout, about a bunch of places. I like that kind of environment. Okay. So we moved to Los Angeles. So now we moved to a place called 104th and Prairie by Los Angeles X Airport. And didn't know, all I knew is I saw more people of color, but most importantly, I was just looking for the rent.
Okay. So you had to move in the hood.
2-bedroom, $400.
Okay. All right.
I said, cut overhead until we get going. I don't care where we at. Problem was, we moved there, my wife and I, and then after about a month, one of the maintenance guys came by. Now, I'm 25 years old, my wife 25, but I look like I'm 18 still. I'm 57 now, so, my family look kind of younger.
Okay.
And so the maintenance guy says, hey, Mr. Mercer, yeah, I know you and your wife ain't from here, but on Fridays and Saturdays, if you come out, don't come back to the house until after 2. If you leave, go out before 11. Come back after 2 because they do shooting every night. I said, what? So this Friday night, we didn't go out. We just at home. Then at 11:05, just machine guns all up and down the street. And then me being curious, I sneak out a little bit. I want to see what's going on. And I looked and saw guys riding up and down. This is 1985 on drop tops. There were a lot of gang members just shooting up and down the street and drinking Old English 800.
8-ball.
Yeah, that's when all that came out. At the time where the rappers Eazy-E and all them were like kids, 16, 17 years old. NWA and all them, Ice-T and all them. And it was right there. It was like an everyday thing. Curtis Blow, but we at home were like, yeah, they started, but it was every day. They were all there. And then I started learning about the Crips and the Blood gangs, and then they had a war with the police. All this was going on, right? Mind you, I just came from 5 years in Kansas then got a total mental overhaul. And now,
I'm sorry. 1 second. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, and now suddenly I'm in the war zone, right?
Sorry about that, Facebook.
Yeah. So suddenly I'm in a war zone.
You're in a war zone.
Yeah. So, and what I didn't know is that this war zone, I got sick.
Wow.
And because this went on, I was there we stayed there for 5 years. And we moved around to Inglewood, Los Angeles. And you got the Bloods in Inglewood predominantly. Then you had the Crips. And it was an adjustment. When I got there were times my wife and I were young. And so there were times where we would leave our house and we have on red and blue. And then people would tell my wife and I, don't wear those colors. Don't wear those colors. Because the Crips will shoot you with the red. The Bloods will shoot you if you got on blue. I was like, what? So we had to change clothes. And this constantly was causing a lot of problems with me here. Fear, worried. I don't understand this. It's not like this way at home. You have to worry about colors. And then I see the shooting. Because I grew up in the suburbs. All suburbs. There wasn't no shooting and stuff like that.
Okay.
So all the shooting, and then a lot of days when I go to work, I was worried about my wife. Days she didn't work. Would people break in the house? With the gunshots? What has happened? So I was so protective of her and hope nothing doesn't happen that I got sick.
You got sick.
I got sick. All I know is this is what happened. This had been going on for like 3 or 4 years. There were times when we went to Venice Beach and a lot of Crips and Blood members were just walking. They dominate the sidewalks back then. And tourists and people were scared, just walk around them.
Okay.
But I used to just walk. I wouldn't move. I was telling my wife, I said, no, don't move. Then they walk around us. They used to make sexual remarks with my wife. And then I would say something to them. I said, I know y'all ain't talking about my wife. And I would talk back, not threatening. And then they would say, oh, man, it was him. It'd be 10 of them. But what I didn't know is that then a few times I say stuff like, man, people don't disrespect people's women like this in Chicago area where I grew up. And then one of them said, Chicago, I hate Chicago. And I was like, oh, whoa. See, I couldn't take it back that I was really from Park Forest.
Right, so you had to say, I'm from Chicago. Yeah, I'm a Chi-Town,
Right, for some defense.
Right, because people think you tough and you from Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't take that back. So, and this happened over a few years. But what was happening as we moved around, there was a time where they're just all over, and then the police was scared of a lot of them, and it was kind of crazy. What the deal is that I had one day, and this was like about the 4th year being there. Now, my everyday life was getting up. My wife and I sometimes would jog to the gym, about a half a mile workout, and I was still training for the next year, just running. And then we enjoyed the LA and do a lot of stuff. And and then one day I was just driving my car. And I'm gonna tell you what they told me. Some of it I remember.
Okay.
I was driving my car in LA, there's a lot of helicopters. They chase people. So all I know is, and I wasn't doing no drugs. Okay. All I know is I parked my car, I jumped out of it, I looked up, I saw helicopters. I thought they were chasing me. I jumped out of my car and I ran about 2 miles back to the house because they found my car 2 miles later. And I got to the house and I started banging on the door. My wife opened the door and I said, they're in there. They're trying to kill me. She said, what's wrong with you? I said, the police, they're trying to kill me. I was going off. They're trying to kill me. No, they're not. And then then I went in the house and my wife was doing hair. We had a house that was hooked to and the front of the house was like a little business front. My wife did hair.
Okay.
Like our little shop. She did hair. I was a social worker. I did hair. She did hair. I was a social worker, worked at the track club, ran on the track club. And then that was my line of work. But that day I came home and I said, they're trying to kill me. They're trying to kill me. And I went in the house. She didn't know what was going on. Then I went in the house, and then she went back to do hair. And then I had got a knife out the drawer, and I put it to my chest, and I remember my thinking. Voices was going, don't think about it, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. So
voices was telling you to stab yourself?
Yeah, kill yourself before they do.
So you said the police was trying to kill you, and the voices in your head was saying, kill yourself before the police kill you.
Yes. Yes. And then I picked up, I had a knife, I had it on my chest, and I remember the voices kept saying, don't think about it, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. And then God is good. My wife comes out the shop. Something told her to check on me. And she said, what are you doing? She screamed. I put it back. She said, what's wrong with you? Oh, no. I said, I'm all right. And then she went back to do hair. And then I left out the house. She said, no, you need to go to the hospital, doctor or something. So I ran out the house.
Have you ever experienced that before?
Never in my life. Never, ever in my life.
It's just a feeling that just came over you to kill yourself?
All I remember is I heard voices says, don't think about it, they're trying to kill me. I left my car and I ran. Okay, and then this is what happened next. I woke up, all I know is that someone said, Mr. Mercer, Julius. And I looked at him. They said, do you know where you are? And I said, McLaren Children's Treatment Center, because I was a social worker. That's where I worked. That's where I thought I was. They said, no, you're in the hospital. I said, what happened? They said, you tried to kill yourself. I said, what? I wouldn't do that. Now I'm in LA.
So you tried to kill yourself again after the episode with your wife?
All I know is I was in the hospital. I don't know how I got there. After I left our house, I ran out the door. My wife said, no, I ran out the door. Next thing you know, I was in the hospital, LA County Hospital. And the doctor told me, Julie, she tried to commit suicide. I said, what? I would never try to do that.
Did he tell you how you tried to commit suicide?
No, he got a mirror. Before that, he said, your mom and your dad are here. They flew from Park Forest, Chicago. And my dad and my mom walked in. And my dad said, son, you all right? I said, yes, sir. And my dad took his hand and he touched my neck like this. And then the doctor gave me a mirror, and I looked in the mirror and I saw a big black mark around my neck.
You tried to cut your throat?
No, it was just a big black, dark. And then the report was this. The report was this. Someone saw me hanging on someone's clothesline in the backyard. I had my own coat, a noose around my neck, and I was hanging like this. And someone pulled me down.
So you tried to hang yourself with your own clothes, and they seen you hanging?
Yes, someone pulled me down. All I know is, like, later, a few years later, my dad had died years later, but my dad told me everything's going to come back to me. See, my dad did 3 tours in Vietnam. He was a master sergeant, and he trained guys, and he'd been around a lot of guys who bombs around them, they're on drugs, that were losing their mind, and my dad helped a lot of them snap out of it. He could recognize something going wrong with your brain. So, so when my dad saw me, my dad just looked at me, and then my dad said, son, get yourself together. He says, everything that happened to you, some of it's going to come back to you. My dad told me that while I was in the LA hospital. So then the next couple of days I stayed there, and then I could remember. I remember walking, after I ran from the car, I just remember walking through neighborhoods, and I remember seeing some of the projects was painted with blue. It said Hoover Crips. Blue. Then I remember seeing like blue spray painted boxes on the wall, like a box painted with the X in the middle of those boxes. And before this happened to me, I remember when I moved to LA, they said that when you see a box with the X on it, that means the gang members and kill somebody. I remember that before at the hospital. I was just learning new stuff. So now I do remember I was walking in the projects, and I remember I saw a box with an X, and I remember in my mind, oh, they're trying to kill you. They're going to kill you, Julius. See, I was delusional. And so then I remember pulling a can up like this, putting a can, an empty can, like a garbage can like this, and that's all I remember. And then the doctors told me someone found me with my own coat. They pulled me down, paramedics came and saved my life.
And you didn't, you don't know if you used anything?
Yeah, I wrote in my book, I still wonder today, who's this angel that pulled me down? Okay, wow. And my dad kept rubbing my neck. And then and my mom and dad, they left back to Chicago. And my wife was there. And then 2 days later, the doctor said, Mr. Mercer, would you like to see a psychiatrist? And for that moment, I said, no, because I was like, if I see a psychiatrist, y'all going to have me stay here. No. And my wife said, how come you don't see a psychiatrist? I said, because we're getting the heck out of here. We're going back home. I'm going home. I'm going back to Park Forest. I'm going back to South Suburbs. So we left the hospital. And then 3 weeks later, we saved some money. We sold everything in the house. We got rid of it, got rid of the cat, 2 cats, got rid of the dog. And we got on the Amtrak train and caught the first thing smoking. See, my remedy to whatever happened to me was just to get out of here. But what I didn't know came out again. Okay? So we left, and then we left LA 1989. And we moved to Matson, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago.
Right, Matson, right out.
That's where it's next to where I grew up at. And then I got a job. Everything was going good. But this is something secretly that I didn't tell nobody. See, when I got left out the hospital, remember I told you I ran from my car and I was seeing stuff. I thought they were following me. Well, I had that's called psychosis. It's paranoia, and then there's psychosis. Psychosis is when you think these things are happening to you and you see it, but in reality it's not. So my mind was so distorted. Something happened that had me to believe these things were happening, but they weren't. You see, that's how far my mind was going. That's why I ran. So they're trying to kill me, but none of that really was going on.
Wow.
You see, so it's called psychosis. It's a real sickness and it needs treatment. But again, I didn't understand. And then so I didn't tell nobody. So for the next 30 days, I went back to work and I had psychosis while I was working. I don't know how I was able to work. I know today it was grace of God, but I was able to work. But then I used to have periods where my brain and reality wasn't connecting. And so, then I started smoking weed. I was like
you had psychosis and smoking weed on top of that?
I had psychosis. And it was something that I didn't want to tell nobody. You know, like I could hear, like a radio could be on at my house. This is after I got out the hospital. I was supposed to see a psychiatrist, but I didn't. So here's what happened. Like the radio be playing a song. Then when I hear the song and the lyrics, whatever the song was about, I took it as they were talking about me. I was interpreting it that way, talking about me. Change the station. See, nobody knew this. I didn't tell my wife or nobody. They'll turn to a talk show and they'll be talking, and they might be talking about, they'll say, you know, suicide rates are going up because of so-and-so. And then my mind would go, oh, they're talking about me, suicide. See, they're all trying to kill me. I turned the radio again. So nobody knew this. I kept this as a secret, man.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I went and got some weed. I said, man, if I smoke some weed, this will help me. Because if I get high smoking some weed, I'll get a buzz. And then when I come down from the buzz, it'll help me to let me know that I'm back in reality. Because I'm high, and now it's down, now reality. Because I kept having this psychosis. Psychosis is not reality. I didn't know this was called psychosis. All I knew is that my mind, I kept feeling like somebody's outside. Somebody's trying to break in. And I look out the window. There's nobody out there. So I was like, wow. Then I smoke weed. Okay, and I wouldn't share it with nobody. And then about a month later, so we moved back to Matson. Okay, now we moved to Matson. I didn't have the psychosis. It was just gone. Then I got a job. I took a job at a car wash. When we got there, my wife and I, we moved in with my mother and my dad till we got on our feet.
Okay.
Right? We were like 29 years old. They said, move in here to get on your feet. Within 30 days, first 30 days, I took a job at a car wash, making $4 an hour. And I remember Dad saying, why are you going to take a job at a car wash? You got a degree, son. Let's be little. I said, Dad, I just want to keep my work ethic. So I worked at the car wash for a couple of months, $4 an hour plus tips. And within 2 months, I saved the money. I bought us a car. I knew if I get the car, I can get me a job in social services.
Right.
So I got the car, got the job in social services. My wife got a job as a hairdresser. So 3 months we stayed at my mom and dad's house, and then we got our own apartment. Okay? So now our life was going okay, decent, like normal families doing stuff. And then my wife wanted to have a baby, first child. Okay, then we had our first child, and here's where I started getting sick again. Okay, they say when you have depression, this is what's dangerous about depression. You probably know this. Depression, if it's not treated, can come back at any time.
Yes.
Sometime quicker, sometime later. So in LA all those years, when I had the suicide attempt, I actually had psychosis, a form of depression, had some issues, but I never got it treated. Because my remedy was I need to leave LA. That's where these problems coming from. So when we move years later, now I get a job in social services, and I wanted to become a teacher. So I started coaching track in my high school, and I'm a caseworker. I became a caseworker on the side. Then I quit the job as a caseworker. I got into our school system, the high school that I went to. I was an assistant in special education. When I got in special education, because I wanted my Type 75 certificate to be a special ed teacher. Okay? So I started learning a lot in the classrooms, and I saw a lot of the students that teacher says was bad kids. Now, they acted bad, but they said bad kids and they're useless. Well, I found out that I used the same method that someone taught me when I went to college. I said, no, you don't have a reading and writing problem. You got a memory problem.
Memory problem.
And then I also knew from my dad, who was in the military, who was very strict on us with our behaviors. I said, if I can help modify the behaviors of these, if I could help modify the behaviors of these kids in the classroom, then they can excel more because they're very intelligent. So what I did was I worked on all the kids' behaviors so the teacher can teach. Because a lot of times the kids acted up in the classroom, messing with each other.
Right.
Talking mess, cursing, and they couldn't get the information. So I wanted them to get the information being taught. So the teacher did the teaching. So I would discipline the kids for behavior. And then as a result, the kids was accelerating. They got put in regular classes.
Good.
Some of them went to college, and they said, thank you, Mr. Mercer, thank you. And I felt good about this, right? So the problem that happened to me is that in the same time I was in the classroom, now my wife gets pregnant, she's pregnant, right? And then when she was about 4 months pregnant, we used to make decisions together all the time, but and compromise and work as a unit. But when she was 4 months pregnant, she says, I'm not going to work anymore at the shop. I'm going to work at home. And I was like, hey, baby, well, can you wait a little bit so I can make an income adjustment? Because if your income stops, let me get another job. But she had made a decision to stop right away. So that kind of put some stress. I didn't know it, but I was stressed out, but I was too proud to talk about it. Pride and ego, I'm going to make it. I didn't share this with my dad, my mom.
So the psychosis came back along with the depression.
It eventually did. Stress was creeping up again. And fears, because one of the things, remember, before I had my first suicide attempt in LA, it was fear, the gangs, the shooting, fear. So now we moved to back in Illinois. Now she quits the job, and now stress. I'm gonna pay for this. I got to work extra hard. I wish we would work together. And then I had a lot of trouble. It was my first child. And I went to the Le Mans pregnancy class with my wife and all that. I thought I learned everything, but I found out that learning and then when the time comes to do it is two different things. Okay? I found out how selfish I was. Okay? Number one, when my wife got pregnant, I was just getting a lot of attention. But when she became pregnant, the attention was about her and about the baby. I had trouble with that. You see? And I wouldn't discuss this with nobody, but I had trouble, lack of attention, affection, and time. And then when our child was born, same thing, lack of attention, affection, and time. And then I was getting stressed out because of a lot of this. I felt like, I do everything else in a relationship. There was no domestics involved, nothing like that. When I get paid, here's the money. We have financial talks. I was being faithful to my wife. I had plenty of times for temptation and stuff like that. But I was in situations where I kiss a girl on the cheek, then the sun would come up. I got to get out of here. I feel guilty. So it just didn't happen, right?
That's good.
Right? So I was fighting it. But then when I get home, because suddenly the affection and love, it wasn't there no more. I wasn't getting it. So I really had a lot of trouble struggling adjusting to this. I had trouble understanding the hormones and then the psychological struggles that women go through when they're pregnant. And then she had trouble understanding the psychological things that men go through when it changes. It changes, right? And so I lacked some maturity with that adjustment. And she lacked a little bit, we found out. Because it takes two to tango, right?
Right.
So, but I got so stuck on what about me? Okay. And so in this we end up, when we had our first daughter, she was about a month and a half year old. My wife and I we divorced. And it was irreconcilable difference, but we divorced, to make a long story shorter. We divorced because we're living in Madison. My wife wanted us to buy this house in Kansas, and the house was next to her mom's. Her mom owned two houses.
So she wanted to go back to where her mom was.
Yeah, because she's from Kansas, my ex-wife, and lived next door. And I didn't think it was a good idea to live next door to her parents or my parents. Because I told her, I says, people say, family can cause problems. Yeah, and she got mad, and she said, no, what do you mean, you're tripping? And then she told her mom what I said. So now I'm a real troublemaker.
Right, and it created a rift between you guys.
Yes. And so and then she got mad at me, and then I was mad because I wasn't getting enough affection and attention. She was mad because she didn't get the house that she wanted. But I said, baby, we had a goal to get this co-op condo, townhouse in Park Forest. We was 1 year away from getting it. But now here comes the mom and saying, "No, we want you guys to have this house." So, like you said, it created a rift. But in the creation of the rift, what was happening to me, I was getting depressed and stressed. In all fairness to my ex-wife, she was too. But something happens when they get sick. It happened to me. Become focused on self and what about me? See, so I got so much into these feelings that I had. I wasn't feeling good. I was stressed. I used to ask my wife, can I take our baby? I want to take our baby out, give you a break. Because, you shouldn't be with the baby all day. This is what the hospital Le Mans class said. The husband should give him a break. No, because I'm breastfeeding. And I said, well, the doctor said, give me some milk to take with him. No, I don't feel like doing it right now. So it was a lot of conflicts. And then she didn't like the ideal. I caused conflicts too, because I wanted to go out a little more instead of staying home all the time. Because I was becoming so selfish, instead of talking about it more, my remedy was, okay, well, I'm going to go stay out a little more. So now it caused conflict. What are you doing? What are you out? I was playing a game, to make her think that I'm messing around, so maybe she give me some more affection, you know. And so all it did was make things worse. All right, you're messing around. Well, you're not doing this. You're not doing this. You're not supporting me. And it was conflict. So we end up divorcing, irreconcilable differences. And she, long story shorter, she ended up going to Kansas, and we divorced while she was in Kansas with our young daughter, and I was here. We're going through the process of divorce. But what she didn't know when she was in Kansas is that I got sicker. I did what they call regress. I found out later that what happened to me with the suicide attempt 4 years before that I never got treatment for, from not managing fears and things that's going on, all that came back. I regressed. It came back double.
What did you do?
Well, going through the divorce, I remember there was many nights where I was crying. I couldn't sleep. Every time I looked at pictures of my wife and kids in the house, I was crying. I couldn't even go to work. I was calling in sick. Okay. And then when my wife had left, my dad had said, son, sell everything in your apartment, sell your 2 new cars, cut your overhead, and move back in with your mom and I until you get back on your feet again, because this is causing you stress. So that's what I did. But one day I was supposed to have everything packed up so we can move out. And I remember my dad called me and said, pack your stuff up. I said, okay, Dad. So when he hung up, I sat in the house, I started crying, and I started rolling on the floor. I couldn't move. And every time I looked at my daughter and my wife, I started crying. And then 2 hours later, my mom called and said, are you ready? And I said, I haven't did nothing. And then they came over and they saw something was wrong. Then my dad came over and he saw something was wrong. So they all helped me pack stuff, and I couldn't even pack. I just cried. Okay, I couldn't even move. I was 32 years old and I couldn't move. They packed everything. My sister, my mother, and my dad.
Now we got, and I don't want to rush.
Yep,
we got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
You know, I know you said in your book that you dealt with drugs and
yes,
and
yeah.
When did that come?
Yeah, we can fast forward that. Well, when I moved out of my apartment, moved in my mom and dad. Well, my dad used to talk to me all the time, and my dad was telling me how to get back on my feet, how to rebound quickly from this problem, my divorce. And so he just said, cut your overhead. And then next thing you know, I got a job back in social services within 30 days. And then my dad told me a story. My dad told me how he had some problems too. We never heard this for 40 years. He had problems with my mother. And then I saw him as a human. Okay. And then when he did that, I opened up to him about a lot of my problems, situations in the marriage. And he said, you should have told me, son, because I said, well, you taught us don't do that. He says, well, sometimes you got to talk. Well, I opened up to my dad, and then I was working. And then, so I used to stop by periodically to see my dad at his job, see how he's doing, or go to a bar with my dad shooting pool, just to say, hey, Dad, you my man. And then what happened was one night, I met my dad at this bar, and we went back to my mom's house, and my dad fell out, he was having a heart attack. And then I was the only one in the house with my mom and my sister. They started yelling and screaming. So I rushed to my dad, and my dad fell out, and my dad said, son, give me my patch. He wore this patch on his arm, like glycerin, nitro. So I put it on my dad's arm, and then my dad came too. And then about a couple of minutes later, the paramedics came, and then my dad fell out with a heart attack, and he died, and I tried to save him. And then when he died, my dad, the last words he said was, help me, son. And I couldn't. And once he died, I knew he had died, but I couldn't tell my mother and my sister he died. I said, just follow the ambulance. And that same night, I knew he was dead because the machine went flatline, okay? I couldn't tell my mom and sister. I just said he's going to be all right. Well, my mom and sister, they followed the ambulance. And I got my dad's car, and I went the opposite way. And then I went over to some girls' house that I knew. And then they were smoking crack and stuff. And I used to curse them out for messing them drugs. I didn't tell them my dad died. But I I could hear they had the voices and just kill yourself. And I was cursing God. I cursed Jesus, God. I was like, hey, why you do all this? Take me, not him. Then I remember they were smoking crack, and then I just started smoking. I started smoking and started drinking. I didn't care. It wasn't nothing about curiosity. I just didn't care. And I just said, I'm going to die like this. And then what I didn't know, within about 2 weeks, I got hooked on the crack. And I was still working a full-time job. The third week after smoking it, I committed a residential burglary. And then I end up, every time I smoked, I was on 4 or 5 day binges in the streets. I couldn't stop. And then I lost my job. And then people would see me, and they knew I was in trouble. It just kept going on and on. Then I had a burglary. I got released. They let me go. They said, go get some help. Went to a rehabilitation center. I took in what they said, but I really didn't buy into everything they were saying. So I got out. They says they were trying to teach me that it's an obsessive compulsive disorder, and that you have to make some changes. So I always kept thinking that I could do this myself. I don't need no help. I can work my way through it. But I kept repeating the process over and over and over. I would end up smoking, getting high. I started chasing girls. I got stuck on having a sex fetish. I like the combination of sex and getting high. I was trying to make it for all the sex I didn't get when I was married and all that. And it cost me, the promiscuity. And then the drugs, every time I used it, within 30 days, I get your crime, a theft or burglary. And then I had spent I had spent out about 13 years, spent 16 times Cook County Jail getting locked up for thefts and burglary from the drug use, 4 times in prison for thefts and burglary. And then I also had 2 more suicide attempts, end up in the mental hospitals, Tenley Park mental hospitals. And they kept telling me that depression is accelerated with the drug use. And it caused me manic depression, psychotic phases, that every time I went to the mental hospitals, I was around people that had their minds messed up. They were never getting their mind back. But mine kept coming back.
But God.
Yeah, see, I thank the good Lord for that. My mind kept coming back, but I just kept repeating the process. And then finally, about 6 years ago, I got locked up again. I was in a psych ward in Cook County Jail. And I kept going to these therapeutic classes every time I got locked up. But this lady said, Julius, mental health and addictions go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. You're just addressing the addiction. And so, but the last time I got locked up, I was at a point that said, change or die. But this time I started hearing another voice. But today I know it's the Holy Spirit.
All right, come on. Yes.
So I was locked up, and the judge said, Tim, he says, man, you wrote a book. You graduated from college, but I don't know why these things happen to people. I was facing 16 years because I've been locked up so many times. And then, but what I did was I enrolled in these therapeutic classes. And then one day, they in the jail there, they said, chapel line. And I wouldn't go 3 or 4 times because there was this guy who happened to be a homosexual. They were in a prayer line. He kept asking me to join them in prayer. And I wouldn't join prayer because he was homosexual. And then one day, and I was depressed on this bunk, they said, chapel line. So I can hear the Spirit say, go. I jumped off the bunk, ran to the chapel line. And one of the pastors used to be an inmate. So he started saying that I'm one of you guys. And then what happened was I started crying. I hugged him. I repented. I renewed my faith. And I made a promise that day forward. This is before I got sentenced. That I wasn't going to go one day without acknowledging God and asking God to direct my footsteps every day because I'm not of a good thing.
Right.
That's what I bought into. And then the judge sentenced me to 8 years. The prosecutor went from 16 to 12 to 10 to 8. The reason why they went to 8, because 8 was the law, the minimum they can do. But the reason why they drove down, I know it was God working through them, is because they heard I wrote a book. And they heard that I have a story. They said that I can do something different if I get out and do right. And so they gave me a chance. And the judge says, when you get out in 4 years, you come back and help these people. And I made a commitment. And so when I did 4 straight years, because I felt like change or die. I get tired of hurting people, my family. I lost my self-respect. I was homeless, living in abandoned buildings on the west side of Chicago. People were throwing eggs at us. I used to ride the L trains begging for money, and I had friends that said he'll never change. But, I knew in my heart I could break through. I just didn't know how.
Yeah.
But when people encouraged me, it was the wardens of correctional centers and officers. They told me, you can get out and turn your back into something good, man. But here was the deal. Here was the deal. When I went to prison, I got certified. I took a class to get me certification in CAPS. It's Certified Associates Addiction. It's a 1-year course. I got Illinois State certification. Out of 25 guys, only 11 of us passed, and I was one of them. But when I took that class, it taught me why I cannot use drugs. Because some people have a predisposed gene in their brain. It's already there. You're born with it. And the instructor says, you have to know that you have something there that you can never get rid of. You can never get rid of. And as long as you don't disturb it with whatever you're doing, it's not going to disturb your behavior. So mine was synthetic drugs, crack, cocaine, anything. Anything synthetic made. So, but this time, the way he told me, I believed it. For years, I went to NAAA. They helped me out. They helped people. Some of the principles I bought into the spiritual principles of NAAA, because that led me to my higher power, which is God through Jesus Christ. Okay?
Yes.
Okay? But I didn't buy into the fact to say I'm Jewish and I'm an addict, because I believe that what you say you are, because I learned through college repetition was everything, right? So what I did was I got certified in addictions, and then when I got out 3 years ago, the next day I joined mental health facility. See, I used to be a caseworker. Now I'm the client. I put myself there for my own good. I go to a stress group every Tuesday, and I see a therapist. Because my psychiatrist, when I told him my story, from when I first had a first suicide attempt when I was 16. When I was 26 in LA. When I told him that story and how I didn't get help in that psychosis, he said, you suffered. You have a schizoaffective disorder. It's from not managing fears and stress. Fears and stress. That was the problem. So I joined a stress group. Now my spiritual life, I also increased my spiritual life to give me some integrity, get my morals and values back. I had to do that. And my spiritual life, when I was in the Cook County jail before I left, and I wouldn't join that prayer group because the guy was homosexual, when I made my spiritual commitment, I made a promise. I don't care what you do, who you are, where you come from, I'm going to treat you with respect as human beings. Because when I went to prison, I had to adjust to the gang members, the people who were homosexuals, rapists, murderers. A lot of them treated me with a lot of respect. And a lot of them I helped out by telling my story. And when I got my CAP certification, I helped hundreds. I became a motivational speaker in prison. And a lot of them have hope. Guys that were in gangs, had juice and mobs, that just got their GED at age 30 and 40. When I left, a lot of them got out and they got their associate's degree. And then when I got out, I was just ready. And I stayed with mental health services for 1 year until I relaunched my speaking career again.
Okay. Now, we got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Look into that camera. Look, and somebody who right now, who went through a lot, who's going through a lot right now, don't think they can make it. Give them about 5 minutes of encouragement that they can make it.
Well,
yeah, talking to Mike.
I have this speaking platform, and it's called Success is in You. And this is what it's about. In spite of how many times you may have failed, in spite of how far you have fallen, in spite of classroom failure, or people say that you'll never make it, you can always still come out and be a winner. And I'm living proof. But here's the key. Here's the key, though. Number one, you have to want to do better. Number two, you have to put yourself in a position to succeed, meaning you have to want to, you have to know in order to be successful or do something different, you have to be willing to do things different. Something that you never, ever did it before. And like I said, I don't care. Look, I got 4 X's on my back, 4 felonies on my back. But I was told that just because I have an X, I'm not X'd out the game. And every time that I succeeded from having problems, it was through education and research. I found out people who had problems like me and how they overcame obstacles. You can go online, you can look it up, stories that people overcome, how to become this and that, and you can still come out a winner in spite of what people say about you.
People of God, wow. Man, thank you, Mr. Julius Mercer, for one of the greatest testimonies and the greatest interviews I've ever had. Your testimony touched my life. And as I always say, people of God, you have to get up and be your own rescue. You have to be the change that you want people to be, and understand that you owe it to yourself. And you are the catalyst way people gonna treat you. You're the greatest example of way people will treat you the way you treat yourself. Get up and make that change. No excuses. Again, we thank Julius Mercer. Get this book, people. You need this book. I got my copy of it. People of God, thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow we'll be dealing with the age difference. Does the age difference make a difference in a relationship? That's going to be a good show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's going to be a good show. People of God, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you too.
That's that.
You just get on board. You just get on board. Get on board. You don't need no ticket. You just get on board. So people get ready for the train to glory, picking up passengers coast to coast. Faith is the key. Open the doors and board this